For better or for worse, rejection is a completely normal part of sports. Whether it's not making the team, not getting recruited, or being cut from a team, it's a normal part of being an athlete. As a matter of fact, it's a normal part of life. Today, we're going to talk about a mindset that is easy to have when you are pursuing goals, but it's a mindset that will stop you dead in your tracks, and another mindset, which is the antidote to the prior mindset, that will put you back on track. Hi, my name is Derek. I'm a certified mental performance consultant through the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, and I make films about the psychology of enhancing human performance. I'm going to set up today's conversation with an example from sprinting. Sprinting at its core is a really simple sport. It's who can get from point A to point B the fastest. In reality, there's a lot of point Bs along that way from start to finish. A lot of individual steps that the athlete has to take in order to ultimately cross that finish line. So we can deduct that in order for the athlete to get from point A to point B in a very fast amount of time, they need to get to each next step as quick as possible, which might lead you to think that the fastest way to get to that next step is to reach the leg out and to get there. And we actually see a lot of track and field athletes do this when they're first starting. They reach their leg out to try to get to that next step and try to pull themselves forward. However, fun fact for you, if your heel or your foot ever lands out in front of your body, it's actually a braking action. It actually slows your momentum down. The easiest way to get to that next step is by pushing on your current step, pushing underneath your center of mass where you currently are. So in track and field, we often say push, don't reach. And I think that is a wonderful metaphor for pursuing goals as well. Often when pursuing goals, we're trying to make the team, or we're trying to get the next raise or get a job position. And it's really tempting to constantly formulate all these ideas and thought processes in our head for how we can possibly reach that next step. Reaching that goal might actually, in a somewhat counterintuitive way, require you to just focus more on where you're currently at and pushing where you're at, doing a good job, lifting where you stand, rather than trying to force or reach for that next step. So for example, if you are trying to get a promotion in your company, well, the easiest way to get that promotion is by doing a really good job at what your current role is. If you want to get recruited, well, the easiest way to get recruited is by being really good in the sport at the level you are currently playing. Yes, you should do the things like reaching out to programs and coaches and going to recruiting camps and everything else that's going to put you on coaches' radars. But ultimately, if you're not doing a very good job at just performing where you're at, you're not going to get that opportunity to reach the next level. Here are 4 things you can do to have a push mentality. 1, focus on the process. 2, root your focus on the present. 3, show up and grind. And 4, be patient. The easiest way you can learn how to focus on the process is by channeling your focus and your attention onto process goals. Now, when we look at goals, they can be divided up into a whole bunch of different categories, but one category that we can divide them up into is outcome or process goals. Outcome goals are obviously focus points on the end result. What do we want in the end? What's that final thing that we're trying to achieve? Where the process goal is more about what are we trying to do to ultimately reach that end state? What's the process? What's the ingredients? What's the directions? What do I have to do right here, right now? Focusing on your process goals is a good way to get your mind off of that next step and onto that current step. So you are pushing rather than pulling. There are a lot of different ways that you can root your focus into the present moment. Now, according to the data and the literature, and also just my experience working with high-performing athletes, that the most effective way one person can learn how to root themselves in the present moment is by cultivating metacognition, or what we sometimes call self-awareness. Specifically, self-awareness within your thoughts, understanding where your thoughts are, because when you understand if your thoughts are in the past or in the future, the next step, then you can bring them to the present moment. But if you don't first cultivate that awareness to understand that your mind might be focusing on that next step and you're starting to reach, well, then you're not going to have any way to bring yourself back to the present moment and push rather than pull. So it's very important that if you want to be a high-performing individual, that you learn how to have that self-awareness. Where are my thoughts now? It's very normal for everybody's thoughts to drift into the future or drift into the past. That's not really the problem. The problem is once you're there and you don't realize you're there. One science-based technique that people can use in order to train their ability to understand if their mind is in the future or the past and just have a little bit more self-awareness is through focused attention meditation. I've done a whole video on focused attention meditation, so that'll be in the description. You can go ahead and take a look at that. Essentially, focused attention meditation just asks you to focus on one stimulus, such as your breath, and just recognize if your brain wanders, and then have that capacity to bring your mind back to the stimulus of focus. And the whole idea is that when you train your mind to recognize where is it going, that it then can transfer to other areas of life. So in regular life, you can recognize, oh, hey, my thoughts are on the future, on that next step. I got to come back to the present moment, and you can have that awareness. A common problem for high performers is that when there is another level or another step they want to get to, they can be a little bit bummed out that they're still on that level, which is totally understandable and totally fine. It's kind of just part of having an athlete brain. However, it's very, very important that you take that step really, really seriously. Even if somewhere inside your mind, you're bummed out, you're not feeling great about it, you have to show up every day and you have to grind. If you're not doing really, really good at performing where you currently are, that ability to reach that next step, it's just much, much less likely. One of my favorite papers in sports psychology, titled The Mundanity of Excellence, which I talk about on this channel all the time, talks about how athletes often reach high levels of performance by going through a lot of mundanity, by every day showing up and doing somewhat regular things over and over again for a long period of time. But from that, great things happen. Now, once again, I know we have these silly athlete brains that are somewhat perfectionists, have high expectations, and we've set these big lofty goals and we want to get to that thing as quickly as possible. However, if you want to survive the long game, which is what it often takes to reach that level, you have to learn how to be patient, how to find joy in the present moment, and how to find purpose and meaning in that current step, even if it's not where you want to be. Many of you are probably familiar with the book Man's Search for Meaning, a book by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust prisoner and wrote about his experience in the Nazi concentration camps. He writes about how in certain situations, even the most dire situations, people can flourish to a degree by finding meaning in what they are currently doing. And I truly believe if you are on a certain step, whether it's employment, pay range, or you haven't got that recruiting letter yet, you can find joy and meaning in that. And that will thus create a patience, which will allow you to continue to show up every day, grind hard, work hard, and that patience can be the key in helping you stay on that step without totally just dropping out of the race. So if you find that you're in that situation where there's another step that you're really, really trying to get to as fast as you can, I highly, highly encourage you to process the strategies and tools that we've talked about today. Be in the present moment, lift where you stand, and push. If you want to dig deeper on how to cultivate the mental toughness to reach that next level, to push rather than pull, you can contact me at my website. I'm more than happy to have a free phone call with anybody who is interested. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Rock on.